Okay, so here we're going to be continuing on with FIFO, all right? And we're continuing on, okay, since we finished the first section, here we're doing scenario question number 2, which says to continue from the inventory from above, okay? And your inventory method is Perpetual and it is FIFO, okay? So once again, we're still using the concept of first in, first out. So here it gives us an indicator that on May 31st, okay, that we had a total of 100 units on hand. So therefore, since we're continuing from our previous scenario, now we need to take this 100 items that we solved for from our first batch, and we're going to carry it and move it on to our next worksheet. So here I have 100 items that cost me $3.829269, right? Which is giving me a grand total of $382.69. That's my leftover inventory. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry this over into my next batch or my next worksheet over here. So in this case, right, I'm not going to say I purchased it, but at least I know that this is from May 31st, okay? And I'm going to carry it over into my inventory on hand. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the information over, okay? Because this is exactly what I have left on inventory on hand, right? So I'm going to make sure that I bring it over so I include it into my batch. So then when I compute my next sales or my next purchase, at least I know that this was there before, right? So in this case, there we go. We have it like this. Okay, I'm going to, there you go. And because I made this orange, I'm just going to be consistent for now so you guys can understand this, that I'm going to keep the colors and bring them over as well. So this was the orange batch, okay? All right, so that is there. So like I said, I've mentioned before, right? I'm going to start eliminating the middle section so we can try to figure this a little more easier without cluttering too much workspace, okay? So let's go ahead and see what happened next. So here we just finished May 31st. So then on June 5th, we end up purchasing 800 units at $4 each with the freight costing $100, okay? So June 5th, 800 units at $4 with a freight costing $100. Okay? So it is June 6th, June 5th. All right. We're not dealing with our cost of goods sold section, so we can move along and go into our middle section, which is our purchases. Okay? So our first purchase that we made was 800 units at $4 with a freight costing $100. So in this case, right, how much is my purchase price? Okay, good. 3,200 plus 100 gives me a total cost of 3,300. Okay. So therefore, what does that make my cost per item to be?
4.125.
So here we have half of a penny. So in this case, right, this is where if we round for our cost of goods sold and we round for our inventory on hand, we can be very easily adding an extra penny somewhere in our books. So this is very important that we keep in mind and make sure that we keep track of this one because this gives us half a penny, right? And in terms of relations, right? When we're dealing with our cost of goods sold, we always wanted a rounded number. Reason being is because that's what we're journalizing, right? You can't journalize a quarter of a penny. That doesn't exist in real life, right? If I'm recording that I sold somebody half a penny, can they physically give me half a penny? No, most likely I would round up. So they would give me a whole penny versus half a penny. So in this context, right, we need to be very aware of when we're doing our calculation. Does this match? Because this is where we can easily add a penny somewhere in our inventory worksheet because we are rounding our numbers. Okay. So because we have a new batch of inventory, I'm going to go ahead and transfer this information over. Okay. Oops. There we go. And we know for sure that this is going to give me $3,300. I'm going the wrong way. There you go. Okay. Or actually, this one. Okay. So here we have a second batch of inventory. So let's go ahead and fill it in with a color. All right. I think we can use green. Green sounds nice. Okay. So there we go. Now I have an orange batch and I have a green batch of inventory, right? If you'd like to, you can set a little equal sum so then you know how much inventory you have on hand at all times. So I'll go ahead and just indicate that right. I'll do it right here. That after making this purchase of inventory, I now have a total of 900 units, right? Costing me a grand total of $3,682.69. Okay, so that's my goods available right there. This is what I have available to sell to my public, right? So that's just adding in my purchases. So let's go ahead and see what happened next. Right? What happened on June 7th?
You sold 300 units at $10.50 each.
All right, we sold 300 units. Okay? So here we sold 300 units, but right now I'm only looking at how much it cost me to sell 300 units. So it is June 7, 300 units. Okay, so let's take a look at my inventory, right? I have an orange batch and I have a green batch. We are doing Fifo. So which batch are we going to take out from first? The 100 from the orange batch, correct. So our goal is to get to 300, right? To sell a total of 300 that day. Now in this case, right, if I sold only 100 from my orange batch, how much more do I need to sell from my green batch?
200 batch more.
Yes, you need to have, because my end goal is I want to reach a total of 300 units sold.
That's wrong. It should be 250 because you sold 350 units.
Oh, let me see. We did 300. Oh, you're right. 350, excuse me. So here should be 250. Okay, to get a total of 350. Okay. So I'm just going to highlight this part because this is what's going to go into my journal. So it's important that you do add up your total cost of goods sold. But in reference point here, this is what I'm calculating. So here, right, I'm selling out my entire orange batch. So in this case, right, how much in grand total is my orange batch for?
382.69.
38269, right? That is what its standpoint right now. I don't need to calculate because I'm getting rid of the entire orange batch. Now again, I'm not going to use my middle section here. So what I'm going to do is, since I sold my 100 items, right? I'm just going to go to my right side and I'm just going to eliminate it automatically. Okay? Because I've sold 100 items, I got rid of that entire batch right there. Okay? Is everyone okay following along? Okay, so go ahead. Yes?
Yes.
So here I just got rid of my entire 100 batch. Now, if you feel more comfortable displaying your work on the middle section here, go for it. But here I'm taking the training wheels off. So yesterday I showed you what happens in which batch, where you're taking the money out from. This one, I'm eliminating that part, and I'm just going to go ahead and go towards my inventory worksheet and just eliminate from there. Okay? So now I have to sell 250 items. I only have one batch left. So what's my cost per item going to be for my green batch? 4.12 and a half, right? So in this case, right, I'm going to go ahead and do my formula for the equal round, because in this case, I'm not taking the whole entire batch. I'm only taking 250 of them. So therefore, I need to calculate each item it's going to cost me. So in this case, each item is going to cost me 4 and 12 and a half cents. I need to know how much I'm going to sell if I'm going to sell a total of 250 of those items. So in this case, right, what is my total cost of goods sold?
1,031 and 25.
1,031 and 25 cents. Okay? So now that I have this, right, since it's a calculated amount, right, I'm only taking some of it and not all of it. What I can do here is that I have to update my inventory because I no longer have 800 units. I have 250 less. So what I can do here is, because this is the number that I'm constantly updating or I'm constantly changing, is I can go ahead and say, well, I started with 800, right? But I just sold 250 items. Or in this case, I could type in 250, right? So then I can see, right? So what is 600 minus 250?
600, 800.
600. I'm sorry, it's 800 items, right? That's what we originally purchased. Minus 250
Should give you 550.
should give you 550. And because I placed my formula in here, it's automatically calculating it for me, which should give me a total balance of $2,268.75. Now, if we do that on our paperwork here, right, what is 3,300 minus the 1031.25? You should get that same exact answer of $2,268.75. All right? Everyone good?
Yeah, got it.
All right. So there, once again, I'm not cluttering my workspace here in the middle. I'm just seeing what I sold and taking it directly off of my inventory worksheet. But like I've mentioned before, right, if we did this for the very first time and I posted my answers on there, all you would see is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and a bunch of numbers here. Would you know what had happened if I gave you this worksheet? It'd be hard to tell, right? So now that I showed you the first time yesterday where the numbers I'm taking out from, why I'm eliminating this, all right? If it helps you, I could say, well, this one was from the orange batch, right? Okay, and then this one, right, is now from my green batch. I could do that too, just so then you have another association or a reference point that I took these values out of the batches right here, okay? Without having to clutter my workspace, all right? So now let's go ahead and see what happened next. All right, June 10 rolls around, right? I end up purchasing another 750 units at $4.25 with the freight costing $75. Okay? So I'm looking for an empty one. It is now June 10. We purchased 750 units at $4.25 with the freight costing $75. Okay? So therefore, what's my total purchase price?
$3,187.50.
Good. $31.87.50. Right? Plus my freight of $75 because that's including in the cost of my inventory.
$3,262.50.
Good. So then what is going to be my cost per item here?
I got 435.
All right. We're going to take our total amount, total cost here, divide it by my total quantity of 750. There you go. Now I do get $4.35. And I'm just going to double check for purposes. It does go in evenly. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and copy this information over into my inventory on hand. All right. So now I get a grand total, right? Just exactly how we did before, right? But now I've just added a new purchase. So now I have a grand total of 1,300 items available to sell. All right. And since I added this in here, I'm just going to be consistent and use another color. So in this case, I'll just go ahead and just I'm just going to go in order of colors. So there it is, blue. So now we have a green batch left and a blue batch left, okay? All right, so now that's my inventory on hand. So let's go ahead and take a look at what happened next. So on June 12th, we sold an additional 450 units. Okay? So let's go ahead and calculate what it costs me to sell 450 units. All right? Let's take a look at our batch of inventory. Do we have enough to sell 450 units?
Yeah.
Yes. Which batch are we going to take out from first?
The 550.
The 550 or the green batch? And that's correct. Now, what's my cost per item going to be for this batch of inventory? What's my cost per item going to be?
4.125.
4 and 12.5 cents, right? So once again, let's calculate it. Since I'm only taking 450 out of 550, now we need to calculate how much it's going to cost in grand total to sell 450 items if each item is going to cost me 4 and 12.5 cents. So in this case, right, equal round.
It's gonna be $1,858.50.
$1,856.25. Did you get that?
Well,
I think you were off.
So it's 450 times rounded up would be a 4.13, right?
We're not rounding our
We're
cost
not
per
rounding this
item.
we're
We're
not rounding the 4.12 and a half up to 413,
no,
right?
no.
Okay.
We're only rounding the total cost.
Okay.
All right. So 1856.25. All right. So now that we sold additional 450 items, right? If it's from my green batch, right? That's pretty straightforward, right? 550 minus 450 should give you 100, which should result in 412.50. All right. So we're doing good because we had 75 cents minus 25 cents should give you 50 cents left over. So therefore, good. Right? So now that we sold 450, I only have 850 units left to sell. So this is what I mean by perpetual inventory, is that we constantly know how much inventory we have on hand at all times. All right? So then let's see what happened next. June 15. What happened on June 15?
You sold another 500 units.
Okay. Another 500. So June 15, we sold a total of 500 units. Now let's take a look at our batches.
So you would pull from the green batch first, the 100 from the green batch, correct?
Correct. Because we're using Fifo. We have to get rid of everything that came first. So in this case, our green batch came first. But we only have 100 units.
So you would have to pull the other 450 from the blue batch.
I think we only sold 500. We only sold 500, so 400 only.
400.
All right? To give us a grand total of selling of 500 units. So in this case, right, my 100 is going to be from my green batch. And then, my 400 is going to come out from my blue batch. All right. So in this case, right, we already know what 100 looks like, right? If we look at our number up here, we know that if I sold all of my 100 items left, I get a total of 412.50 cents. Okay? We know that just by looking at that we're going to get rid of the whole entire thing. There's no need to calculate because at the end of the day, we know it's going to be 412.50. Okay, 412.50. So then here I could go ahead and just automatically eliminate it from my batch because I got rid of the whole batch. So now for my blue batch, I need to sell 400 more. So in this case, what's my cost per item going to be for my blue batch?
4.35.
$4.35. So in this case, it is an even number. But I'm still going to practice because you never know. If you have half of an item sold, it could be reflect differently. But in this case, I'm still going to use my equal round and be consistent. So if I sold 400 items at $4.35 each, my grand total is going to be
1740.
per
1740.
good. All right. So here, my entire batch for my for this selling 500 items, my grand total is $2,152.50. So now I need to update my blue batch, right? Because I have 400 less. So what is 750 minus 400?
350.
350. And we get, right, the same, this we get 1522.50 remaining. All right. Good so far? So then, let's see here. On June 20th, what happened here?
Purchase 600 more units.
Okay, at 405 with a cost of 20. So look for an empty space. What was the date again? June 20th. Okay. June 20th, I bought additional 600 units at 405.
What's OMN?
I made a typo there. It's just on.
Okay.
So 600 at 405. So I'm going to go into my purchases section. 600 units at 405 with the freight costing $20, I believe. Yes, $20. Okay. So here, what is my total purchase price?
Over $2,430.
Okay. Plus $20,
Uh,
2050.
$24.50. Good. So what should be my cost per item here?
415.
$4.
You got $4.08.
Okay, let's try that again. $24.50 divided by 600.
I got 4.08333333.
All right, so now that we have a new batch of inventory, right? Let's plug it into our inventory on hand. So now I purchased an additional 600. So now I have 950 available to sell. Okay. And I guess we can make this red. Right? So now I have two batches of inventory left. One, the blue batch for 350 and my red batch for 600. Okay. So then let's see what happened next. So now that's my available goods available. So here on June 22nd,
You sold 250 units.
We sold 250 units.
So just real quick, just on a hypothetical, say, cause just watching this pattern
Mm-hmm.
here that's going on. Say there is a retail store and they have the same goods. You see how you go into previous batch, eliminating previous batch, even though they have, the sequence that you're going in here.
Uh-huh.
It would be like, just really quick off topic. It's running in my head. It's like how would they even be able to make a profit if you're selling, you're purchasing wholesale one group of items at a higher price in some cases than you purchasing them in others. Like say that when you go to your cost of goods, like is there like if you go up there, like one is being sold for 408, another one was being purchased at 408, another one being purchased at $4.35, but they're still being sold retail price at 10.50. How does a business be able to see an overall profit with that? Wouldn't they books kind of be in the minus?
It just depends on what item you sell. But if you actually notice, like let's go up to the previous one, my items were sold at $10.
Okay.
As my items got more expensive, that's where I've started bringing up my selling price. So yes, it really depends on the item that you sell, right? If you're looking at a business perspective, supply and demand. If it's available, then they'll sell it to you at a cheaper price. If it's not available, of course you're gonna have to pay a little more because there's just not enough to go around. So the cost every time you purchase an item, like especially because so we're doing FIFO, right? Let's
Right.
think of it as we're buying apples. It depends on the season of apples. It depends what state that you're buying it from. If you're buying it out of country, you may have to pay extra stuff from it. And every time you purchase these batches of inventory, they're not going to be consistent. They're not going to be the same because of maybe this season, this batch, it's apple season. And then next month, it's not apple season. Then when it gets to fall time, it's harder to grow apples. So we have to outsource to another state to supply the apples. So it just really depends on the purchase price. And again, when you do purchase it and you notice that it is going higher, that's where you can determine that, okay, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to raise my price higher. So then my costs are completely covered and I'm still gaining at least a profit out of this. So if you go to any grocery store, right, you notice that sometimes an item, it will have a consistent price value on it, right? $9.99, $9.99. Every time you go there, it's $9.99. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, you go back to that store, now it's $10.99. All right? And occasionally they'll have some sales. But you're going to notice that things are going to go up in price. So just like bread, right? Bread we used to buy it 10 years ago, probably like $1.90. Now it's like $2.99. So over time, eventually, when you buy your products, you want to have that consistent profit margin, then you're going to have to raise your prices. But just note that if you raise your prices, customers are not willing to buy it. So at the end of the day, you probably be putting that item on sale and you end up losing that profit anyway because no one's going to buy it if you keep raising your prices higher. We have to look at the spectrum of if we purchase it for a higher price, we got to sell it for a higher price so we can make a better profit. But that doesn't mean the customers are going to be willing to buy it. If it's too expensive, the customers are going to be like, forget it. I'm not buying it until you put it on sale. Oh, today, buy two, get one free, or buy two for this price. Then customers are willing to pay for it. So subjectively, profits will always fluctuate depending on what item you're selling. Okay. Hope that clarifies.
Yeah.
So yes, in context, you would definitely want to raise your prices if you notice that your purchasing is getting more expensive. You definitely want to make sure that you're selling your price covers the bottom line so you don't ever break even. Okay? So where were we again? So we were on the 22nd, I believe.
Yes, we sold 250 units at
Perfect.
50 cents each.
Okay, so 250 units. Let's take a look at our batches. All right. We have a blue batch for 350. Is that enough to cover?
Yes.
Perfect. So there we go. We have it here. We're going to be taking out from our blue batch of inventory. Okay. What is my cost per item for the blue batch?
$4.35.
$4.35. So let's calculate it. How much is it going to cost me to sell?
About 75.
Okay, let me see. What 1,085 you said?
No, no, no. It's $2. What was it? 250
Mm-hmm.
times the 435. 1,087.50.
Good.
Is that what you have there?
That's exactly what I have. So here I'm getting rid of 250 items. So just like this, right? If I started out with 350 and I subtracted the 250, therefore I should have a remaining balance of 100 units, which is $435 even because I got rid of those 50 cents. Okay? Perfect. Our numbers match. All right. So now I only have 700 units left to sell to anybody, right? So then what happened on June 25th?
You purchased another 350 units for $4.35.
Good. So in this case 350 at 435, freight costing 50. $350 at 435 with the freight costing 50. And this was on June 25th. All right? So what's my total purchase price here?
$1522.50.
1522.50. Let me double check real quick. It's 350. Good. Okay. So good. 1522.50 plus $50 to bring my total cost to be
1572.50.
good. So then what should be my cost per item here?
$4.35. Is that right?
Oh,
No, 4.49.
$4.49. Let's see if it's more than 49. Oh yes, it's 49.2857. So we just need to make sure that this right here, we don't round. We have to keep it unrounded because we're selling thousands and thousands of items. So I don't want to lose $1 for no reason, right? So let's transfer that amount over into my inventory. So I guess I looked at the wrong number. It's 449. Okay. So therefore, my new inventory, right? I just added it in there, so now I have available of 1050 items left to sell. Okay. So in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make this one yellow. All right. It's the only color I've left. Oh. All right. And there we have it. Now I have my batches separated. All right. So then let's see what else happened next. Okay, so we're reaching the almost near the end of our scenario. So then on June 27th, how many items did we sell?
550 units.
We sold 550 units, leaving a remainder of 500 units on hand by the end of June 30th. So 550. Okay. June 27, 550. Now let's take a look at our batches of inventory. We have a total of 3 batches, right? We got blue, red, and yellow. So in this case, which batch do I need to take out from first?
Your blue batch.
Your blue batch, all right? And that's 100 units. Our goal is to reach 550, right? So therefore, how much do I need to take out from my second batch?
450.
450. All right, to bring a total of 550. So as we know, right, this 100 is going to come from our blue batch, okay, which we know to be, right, the 100 items that are there is it's going to cost me, right, 435. So therefore, it's going to cost me in grand total $435, right, even. So just by knowing that figure, right, you don't need to calculate. You already know how much it is. So in this case, right, if we have this amount here, we could go ahead and just eliminate the blue batch right away. Boom. Right? All right, and then let's see, which batch do we need to take out from next?
Red.
The red one, right? So in this case, we're not taking all 600 items. We're only taking a portion, right? So in this case, it's going to cost per item, right, $4.833333. So in this case, right, let's calculate it. How much is it going to cost me to sell 450 items at $4.083333?
1,037 and 40 and 49 cents. Then you said we didn't round. Which one did you say we didn't round?
We don't round the cost per item.
Okay.
We only round the total cost.
Okay. So 1,837.50.
Perfect. All right, and I'm going to make a reference that this came from the red batch. Okay. So once again, grand total for selling a total of 550 units gives me 2,272.50. So in this case, right, I need to take out 450 out from my 600 batch in my red. So what quantity do I have remaining? So I do 600 minus, what was it, 450? So in grand total, right, including my red and my yellow batch, I have a grand total of 500 units. And boom. That's exactly what we solved for. That's exactly what we have on hand. And that's how we use perpetual inventory. Okay? We always constantly know how much inventory we have at all times. We are constantly updating our inventory. Every time we make a purchase, we add it to our inventory. Every time we sell a product, we have to subtract it out of inventory, right? So any questions here on how to do perpetual inventory using the FIFO method?
So my question is, whether we use a perpetual or periodic, the outcome is the same, right, at the end of the day?
Okay, so no, it's not going to be the same because here we are every time we're constantly purchasing, okay? So in this case, FIFO is actually going to be the same for periodic. But when we dive into LIFO, LIFO will definitely be different between perpetual and periodic because every time we make a purchase of inventory, we're getting rid of it. Where periodic, right, we wait till the very end and then we get rid of it. In this one, we're gonna get rid of it as we go. So in this case, you could have like zeroed out entries in between batches of inventory because that's just the way perpetual works. You're taking it out as you go. But in this case, if you do look in perspective of periodic, perpetual, FIFO, yes, they actually end up being the same result because essentially you're just getting rid from top to bottom. But LIFO, once we get into LIFO, it will definitely change because every time you make a purchase of inventory, you're going to treat that one as the last one that came in. All right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Regardless of what kind is it, life, you will always get rid of the last in first.
So in this case, if it's FIFO, you would get rid of the first ones first. LIFO, yes, last ones in, yes.
Okay.
All right. So any other questions?
So in the real world, which one is the more popular? Like most of the companies apply.
Okay, so
We use periodic inventory in Africa, so we don't even know these things. So I'm just learning
okay.
from perpetual, so we don't do those kind of stuff.
It just in context, it really depends on your business and company, right? But I'll tell you from right now, when we dive into QuickBooks, the easiest form and method, especially if you're selling a bunch of products, right? If we're a grocery store, right? We sell apples, we sell bananas, we sell peaches, we sell lettuce, tomatoes, we sell a bunch of stuff. Now, if you have the brain power to be able to go through each individual worksheet and be able to remember which batch came first, I'm going to applaud you. But in this context, right, the best one, the most common one that everybody uses is going to be the average costing. All right, because it's the easiest. You don't need to have to remember what batch came first, what batch came last. All you're dealing with is just one number and one number only, your average cost. Okay, now when we move into perpetual type of inventory, right? So in context of perpetual versus periodic is that periodic, maybe you don't sell that item very often. So, that gives you a reason that maybe at the end of the day, you don't need to keep track of what you sold. At the end of the day, you just count how much you have left, right? Where perpetual, if you're constantly buying a product and you're constantly selling it, you should know by the end of the day that you know how much items you have on inventory. But of course, with technology these days, right, everything has a barcode. So with that kind of idea, right, you scan the barcode in the system and the system will give you an inventory stock information, right? It will tell you, oh, you have 10 items left on available. So of course with technology, it will just make it that much easier to know how much you have on hand at all times. But for someone who's selling 1 million items, right? So a grocery store that sells all these items, it's almost near impossible to memorize how much inventory you have for every single item in your store. So that's exactly why, understanding, well, in this context, if I'm selling a particular item, this is a method that I'm going to use to sell it because, like I said, FIFO, if you have milk, they have an expiration date. They go bad in like 3 weeks or something like that, right? So every time you buy your batch of milk, it's got an expiration date saying you need to sell it by this date. Now, if you use LIFO, right, selling your last batches that you just purchased first, then all the milk that you have in the very back, which is the older dates, they're all going to expire and you're going to take a loss because you didn't sell those milk. So in context, it really depends on which kind of item and product that you sell to your consumers, but it also depends on what method makes it easier for you to calculate. Okay, so every company does everything different, but the most common one and the one that if we do QuickBooks for small businesses, you're strictly going to only use average costing just because it's so much more easier to calculate and you don't need to memorize what came first, what came last. You don't need to keep track of it like that. You just take the overall amount, you divide it by your total amount of quantity, and boom, you get one number and you just calculate it from there. Okay? All right, any other questions?